What is up, guys? Taiki here, and today I'm very honored to have Luigi from AvaLabs come on to the show. He is the director of DeFi at Avalanche Labs, and I'm looking forward to asking lots of questions about Avalanche Rush and how he thinks about the DeFi ecosystem. So thanks for being on the channel, and how are you doing today?
Great, Taiki. Thank you for having me, and looking forward to talking to you.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so just for the people that aren't familiar with who you are, when did you get into crypto, and what do you do for AvaLabs, more specifically?
Sure. So I got involved in crypto, initially like many people with Bitcoin, purchasing my first Bitcoin and kind of diving deep into the rabbit hole of consensus and blockchains and proof of work, and then in a bigger way in 2016 with Ethereum. I had a friend who was very involved in the Ethereum ecosystem, and he was bringing me around to many crypto meetups and conferences, and I started to just, really bend my mind a little bit about what was possible with smart contracts and things like that. And so, and then in 2017, I raised money for a DApp that I was building, VC funded, and we tried to go build something that was different. It was essentially solving misinformation online on a blockchain. But I think what we realized quite quickly, what a lot of people realized, that a lot of the infrastructure to build those type of dApps wasn't quite ready at the moment. Like there was no Uniswap. I don't think there was really like a Chainlink mainnet available. So it was very difficult to to do that. And in addition, like even just the way MetaMask was set up was so much harder to kind of swap tokens. So after that, kind of took a step back and evaluated evaluated the space, and was looking for layer one chains after that, fiasco where I realized that Ethereum wasn't going to be able to scale. And Avalanche was one that was on my radar since the paper dropped, the Avalanche consensus paper dropped. And so had the opportunity a few months ago, let's call it 4 months ago, to join AvaLabs. My role is the director of DeFi, focused on building out the DeFi ecosystem here and really kind of getting that engine roaring. So I've been working on a few things, and obviously Avalanche Rush is one of them.
Yeah, so let's talk about Avalanche Rush. So what was the thought process behind how the 10 million token Avalanche Rush program? And I guess there's a follow-up question on when the initial Avalanche Rush was announced, it said $180 million, right? But to be more specific, it was more like 10 million Avalanche tokens, right? So I guess every day the price changes, but that's one clarification that my audience wanted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've allocated 10 million of AVAX for the program. And yeah, so that's kind of how the program's going to work.
Yeah. So did you take inspiration from Polygon, when you designed this? Because I mean, it's pretty similar to what Polygon did, right? Just have AAVE and Curve come over and then incentivize that. And then as more and more people bridge liquidity, then, partner up with more projects.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. No, I mean, for sure we took inspiration from Polygon. For sure we took inspiration from Compound and others before us in terms of liquidity mining. But providing incentives for users to try your product is something that's been around, in the world for a long time, right? I always use the example of Uber giving out free $30 rides.
Yeah.
And I would have never tried Uber had I not used 10 of those. So I think, and then Lyft came and did the same thing, right? So there's many ways for platforms, especially marketplace platforms that have two sides, to kind of use incentives to at least let people try what they've built. So with Avalanche and with Avalanche Rush more specifically, the Avalanche Foundation set aside a certain amount of tokens to really focus on DeFi, focus on incentivizing DeFi on the platform and show its commitment toward DeFi. But also, I think the timing of it was very important. A new bridge was just released about 2 to 3 weeks ago, for which we believe the UX and UI is something that it doesn't exist for other bridges around the ecosystem in crypto. And because of that, we felt that that's one thing that was very important. Also, our first lending platform went live, and that was BenQi.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, that did very well. But part of the reason that Avalanche kind of didn't have, I guess, soaring success in DeFi prior to these things is some of the pieces weren't there. We didn't have Chainlink made until a month ago. And then once we had that, other pieces fell in place, like a lending platform, and then, you know, a good bridge. So the combination of good bridging, Chainlink oracles, and a lending capacity brought around the right time to kind of you know, launch Avalanche Rush. And just to kind of get to your question, you know, I think a lot of people in this space and other spaces really, you know, look at what ideas are out there and try and decide, you know, is this the best way to approach this problem? And maybe they take pieces of what other people have done and iterate. And I think that's what we're doing in this specific program. We've only announced a very small snippet of Avalanche Rush so far. So, you know, I think there's going to be a lot of iteration on incentive programs in general.
Yeah, definitely. Like when Avalanche first caught my eye, it was because when I saw the announcement of BenQi being, I think it was like live on August 19th or something. And I'm a huge money markets guy, and I knew that like once like a trusted money market comes online, like liquidity is gonna flow through the bridge. And I think the bridge is like one of the best bridges I've ever used. It's just like it's cheap, right? It's even coming from Ethereum, and it's pretty fast. So that's
also like
definitely
messaging matters, right? Like UX of the bridge. Like, I don't know about you, but in crypto in general, you know, especially on the Ethereum side, I'm always weary when there's no messaging going on when I'm sitting there hanging on my transaction. So to like have good UX and letting you know, like, hey, you know, this is the confirmations, this is where you sit right now. And then at the end of the bridging experience, you get brought to this ecosystem page, which kind of, you know, gives you an idea of what's on the Avalanche ecosystem. But you also get a little bit of AVAX airdrop to you so that you can make your first transaction. Like that's another user experience issue for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with the user experience part, because when I bridge from Matic to Ethereum, like the UI and the UX is like, okay, like we're processing your bridge. It's gonna take 45 minutes to 3 hours, so please wait. And I'm like, okay, like I guess I have no idea like when it's gonna come, but with your bridge, it's like I can see like, okay, like up to 35 confirmations. I'm on I'm on like number 10, etc. It's pretty fast, so that's definitely cool. So did like the surprise of BenQi surprise you by any chance? Because it definitely surprised me. I mean, I knew it would do well, but not like, whoa, like that's a lot of like attention.
I mean, I think it was really a culmination of things, of how well it did. I had no doubt in terms of the success of the team and being able to deliver. You know, we've known the team for a while, and feel strongly about their capabilities. But, you know, obviously, you know, the timing of their launch was, you know, very beneficial, right? We just launched a new bridge, and, you know, we launched this program, which got people excited, or announced this program, which got people excited. So, and plus we also, they were the first participant in Avalanche Rush with 3 million in AVAX incentives. So, you know, I think the success was maybe, was definitely more than I anticipated. But, you know, I don't think we expected it to kind of crawl along. The ecosystem has been begging for a lending platform for a long time. So this was much anticipated for native Avalanche users. And one thing that's really interesting about natives, you know, we have a lot of users on Avalanche that actually have never tried Ethereum. And they're just welcomed into the Avalanche ecosystem directly. And so I think that's something that's not completely understood from outside of our ecosystem.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I mean, like when I started my YouTube channel, like I kind of like my channel blew up because of Polygon, and a bunch of people that like never used Ethereum, like didn't want to use Ethereum because of the gas fees, like tried out DeFi for the first time on Polygon, and like that's how they like got into DeFi and like fell in love, right? So contrary to popular belief, I feel like most people like don't really use ETH right now, especially the high gas fees. I know layer 2 is coming soon, but you know, in the meantime, like other L1 options like AVAX is definitely good. So speaking of money markets, I think the number one question my audience is curious about is like when AAVE and Curve, because I think Avalanche Rush was announced a week or two ago, but I guess there was like never like a timeline. I guess we know it's coming, and we know it's gonna be great. But can you give any like estimates on like when that's gonna like be live?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think pretty sure my mentions on Twitter is just like the question I get every 36 seconds. No, it's a good question. It's a fair question. And what I will say, and what I can say, is that we will let users know in advance when they will deploy in terms of a date and give specific timing around it. So we will do that. In terms of timing, I would say it's a few weeks out is kind of like what I can give. There's just some integration being completed. It's really not much, and some testing going on. It's just a matter of getting that kind of ironed out and making sure that, this is the one thing in crypto, right? Like everybody gets, very excited, and I understand it all because, I've obviously been around the space for a while too, so I do too. But what we've tried to do, and this, the bridge is a good example, is give ourselves the greatest chance, or Avalanche has given itself the greatest chance of success for the moment when it arrives, and the way to do that is to do as much as you can in the preparation and planning and testing, right? To make this go off as smooth as possible is ideal. And I think what happened was a lot of people had tried BenQi, Trader Joe, other application, Pangolin, other applications in Avalanche, and I think that what they really liked was the user experience of using Avalanche, right? Fast finality is something that we've been talking about, but until you actually get to use it, and in DeFi is something in particular where you're doing like 10 transactions very quickly, one after the other, finality matters, right? When you don't want to be sitting around waiting to know whether or not your transaction went through. That's not fun for anybody. So people got excited about using Avalanche, and that's a good thing. That's the point of Avalanche Rush. And I think they're going to be really excited when AAVE, Curve, Sushi, and the others, and we announced PowerSwap today, are going to be deploying. So yeah, it's coming very quickly. It's top of mind. We'll provide a full date and time for when it's going to happen, but it's not very far off at all.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to hear. Yeah, I feel like everyone in crypto. I mean, everything in crypto, like the things happen so fast in the space that like, people have very, very like low patience levels. I guess it's just like when AAVE, when Curve, I need it now. Like we're low on dopamine. But yeah, like I mean, for sure, like safety testing, that's all important.
Yeah, the other thing, just to piggyback real quick off that.
Yeah,
Avalanche Rush and Avalanche in particular is like, for us, a long-term vision, right? Avalanche Rush is not just a 3-month kind of flash in the pan incentive program, just trying to spike utility. It's going to be deployed in phases. Those phases are going to be, the first phase is around 3 months, and we'll kind of be able to then see where the chips lie. But what's important for us and for everybody to understand is this is not a just short-term type of program. We're thinking about the long-term here for the chain, and we believe Avalanche is well suited as a layer one technology to really solve a lot of people's needs as crypto and blockchains go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I guess like I guess like most recently, like there has been announcements of like Fantom and Celo announcing liquidity mining programs. And Celo is like really similar to like, I guess, AVAX and Polygon, just like liquidity mining programs. But I think Fantom has a really interesting, I guess, concept of, instead of giving tokens away to users, we'll give it to the developers, right? And they can decide what to do. So have you ever thought about like potentially like using as part of Avalanche Rush, like giving like, I guess, rewards to developers that want to build like Avalanche native projects on AVAX?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously I saw those, and it's good to see that there's others who agree with the idea of using incentives and deploying them as a way to get people to choose their, to try their chain. And like, let's not forget that that's the most important thing, right? At the end of the day, this is a user and developer acquisition type of program. So the technology needs to be good. The bridging needs to be good for people to stay. But it's interesting. There's that narrative that the Fantom, program is specifically only to developers, whereas it's kind of strange to me because our program, is going to allocate a large amount to native projects, and native projects are developers. So,
Mhm.
we've announced AAVE, Curve, Sushi, Power Swap. There's, BenQi is obviously a native project. So in that
Yeah.
respect, we've definitely incentivized their launch very successfully. So, and there's no reason for anybody to believe that's not going to continue in terms of native. We've also announced Avalanche and Yay Games, Avalanche
Yeah.
also being a native project as well. So there's going to be native projects that are going to be incentivized. And the best way to ensure success, especially when you have a native project that is innovative and is doing something special, is after their launch, incentivize it with rewards. So I think that kind of puts everybody in a sweet spot of the most innovative projects that come on Avalanche. You should come build here because we will reward your launch. And I think tying this to a metric that is backward looking is complicated in production to actually implement from my perspective. But from just the narrative in general, I think that this is only for users, not developers, is definitely inaccurate.
Got it. Yeah, and I definitely agree. Like, I feel like you have to like reward like native projects, right? Because if everything like an ecosystem does is like just I guess pay off in Curve and Sushi, it just becomes like ETH layer two, right? It's like really hard to differentiate.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you do have like native projects that are thriving, ideally like on AVAX, like maybe PNG, like Pangolin or Trader Joe is doing more like swap volume than like Sushi, right? I mean, Sushi is great, but it'll be nicer to like have native projects be more successful because that's part of the experience, right?
Yep.
Of like,
So
I guess using different ecosystems.
yeah, right. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, Aave has a strong community. Curve is a very strong community, and so does Sushi. And like I said, part of this program, number one, is so people try our chain, right? We want to boost activity on the chain, and by incentivizing their communities to come over and try it, that's one way of getting liquidity, users on the chain, which we can then use incentives on native projects to benefit from, right? So it's kind of you need to think about things holistically, and also how they work in motion at different steps. And I think that's what's really important, because if we just do native projects, that's fine, that's possible, but then we don't get to leverage some of the existing communities and really great users that have been around in crypto for a very long time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel like Aave and Curve are like musts for like a new ecosystem, especially because Curve like helps like stablecoins keep its peg and like facilitate
Exactly. Yeah.
low
And
swap fees.
liquidity too. Yeah.
Yeah, and Aave is like everyone loves Aave. It's just the highest TVL. Like I know a bunch of people
Yeah.
that wants to use Avalanche, but they're just waiting on Aave. There's a bunch of people
Hmm.
like that, so that's definitely going to be a bullish catalyst. So in
Hmm.
terms of, I guess we talked about like getting people from other communities try out Avalanche, etc. But I guess with Fantom and Celo announcing their liquidity mining incentives, like how does that AvaLabs team like plan to compete for mindshare among the DeFi participants, right? Because crypto is so small, and I feel like there's frankly like not too many people in DeFi right now, so you kind of have to compete for eyeballs, attention, and like you have to fight for their liquidity. So how do you plan on, I guess, because right now I feel like Avalanche is like top of mind, but how do you, I guess, plan to stay that way, right? And keep
Yep.
liquidity within the AVAX ecosystem.
No, it's a good question. And I don't think there's one clear silver bullet answer. I think it's all things happening at once, right? Like our business development team doing a good job of finding the most innovative projects and making sure we support them, not just from a funding perspective or incentive perspective, but also making introductions throughout the community and making sure we give them the best probability of success. That's one thing we can do. We also have this incentive program that we can use, like I said, to bootstrap launches of these various projects. And we're also going to be working on some hackathons and in-person events, conferences, and things like that to continue to build the community. We also have many other initiatives in-house. I think before Avalanche Rush was announced, there was somewhat of a sentiment that there wasn't much going on, and from us, inside of the team, there was, we kind of just wanted to line up the pieces appropriately. And I think that methodical approach is something that you can expect from us, and maybe something that isn't so common in crypto. We try to do our best to kind of be professional about dates, to be professional about timing of things, and to be professional about having primitives set up when the time comes to actually, have the users have the best possible experience that they can, given the timing that we have.
Yeah, most definitely. I guess like going off on a tangent, like how big is the AvaLabs team? And like how big, I guess the second part of the question is like, how big is your DeFi team, right? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, AvaLabs in general, I believe is over 100 people. I don't have the exact number. In terms of the team, the BD team, we're I think, I'm trying to count. I think we're like 10 or so. But the Avalanche community as a whole is kind of very close knit, so to speak. There's a lot of people that, and this is great to see, right? AvaLabs in particular can only and will only do so much, right? Like this is a decentralized ecosystem, and that's really something that we are, believe very strongly in. For example, Avalanche as a chain has over 1,000 validators, something that, I don't think really any other chain can say that. So we believe in decentralization from, a validator perspective, but we also believe in it from a actual community perspective. So we're really trying to incentivize and try to grow the community such that, these things kind of happen. And it's actually interesting to see that it's been happening, especially since the launch or the announcement of Avalanche Rush. There's a lot of projects that are just deploying without us even knowing. That's great to see from my perspective. It's ideal, frankly. We gave out an application for some for natives to submit to actually be part of Avalanche Rush. And I was going through it this morning, with some of the team, and I didn't know half of them, or maybe even 75% of the names, right? So that's good to see, right? We don't want to be this closed off, centralized entity. We want to be decentralized, and we want the community to grow organically.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's actually bullish. Like if you're like getting applications from like a bunch of projects that you've never heard of, because that means that people are building on it, right? It's like maybe devs are coming from Polygon, ETH, or something, but I mean, there's no way to know. But that's definitely good, because I mean, incentive programs work, right? It's just like a marketing tool, I guess. But obviously, like no ecosystem, like no foundation can like keep doing it in perpetuity. So
for
you
sure,
kind of want organic growth. You need organic growth, and that's good to hear. I guess I have a couple of like final questions, but like, what are you most excited about? Let's say for the rest of the year when it comes to crypto, DeFi, Avalanche, like anything that like suits your fancy.
It's a good question. One of the things I'm very excited about is seeing some evolution in AMMs in general. In terms of, this is just, doesn't matter which ecosystem it happens on, but just from my perspective on what gets me excited. I don't love the UX of an LP having to supply 2 tokens. Like in traditional finance, this is not something that you necessarily have to do. Like big banks, they have inventories and are able to hedge exposures across the assets, right? So I think whoever figures out a protocol that can do that on itself, by itself, will actually, be the most used AMM in the future. And to me, that's very exciting. That can actually have a chance of replacing a central limit order book. Because from an efficiency perspective, central limit order books, in my opinion, are much more efficient. But they're hard to do, in a decentralized way. So yeah, I'm excited for innovation on that space. I know there's teams working on that, apart from what exists at the moment. I'm also very excited in terms of us in, kind of seeing how this Avalanche Rush program can natively, what kind of native and exciting projects can come out of this, and what native and exciting things we can do with the incentives. So that's something else, right? Like I know there's staking contracts that exist that people have used and are tried and true and tested. But I think if we learn anything about DeFi and crypto, it's that there's innovation that can happen at the smart contract level and ways to deploy incentives that are more material and better for users. Right now, right now it seems like everybody is really incentivized for TVL. That's been like kind of the focus. And it's interesting, right? Like you have transactions on chain, and a lot of these chains like Avalanche burn fees. So it's also interesting to wonder whether or not transactions will be incentivized in the future. So there's a lot of different things to figure out and kind of learn, and that's what I'm excited about. Incentives really fascinate me in general.
Yeah, that's really yeah. The last thing you mentioned was pretty interesting because I believe like whenever like is like all of AVAX like that I use for transactions burned, or was it like a part of it? Because I know it's being
Yeah,
burnt, but it's okay.
yeah,
Yeah, so yeah,
yeah. There's no
incentivizing
like
transactions.
validators. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
there's no validators like taking your AVAX fees as a rewards, right? Like it just goes to be burned and collectively shared. Much more democratic of a process.
Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting. So like I guess incentivizing transactions on like AVAX is good for I guess AVAX token holders, and I mean like I feel like 90 like most people in DeFi like they care about price going up, and it does kind of matter, right? Like if the price is doing well, then it's just like people are more interested in it naturally. Uh, so
Yeah, I mean, systems are reflexive, but
yeah, yeah.
it's not only a price thing from my perspective. It's also just incentivizing different type of usage.
Mhm.
Total value locked is one thing. It doesn't mean it's the only thing.
Yeah,
But I do think that total value locked is like a metric that you want to have at a certain. There's like a threshold that you want to have. You want to be a chain that has and is carrying a decent amount of value. That shows that people have faith in the chain.
yeah, and like, I guess higher TVL means like more usage, right? It's like if Curve has a bunch of TVL, then that means that there's a bunch of swaps happening between stablecoins and whatnot, which is obviously good for the ecosystem. So one last question I have for you is like you said you've been in crypto for a relatively long time, and you're the DeFi guy, right? So like, is there like what's like the most degen thing you've done when it comes to crypto
Boy.
or DeFi? If you can answer that question.
Oh man. That's a good question. Let me think. What am I allowed to say? No, I'm kidding. Um, Here, I'll say what the dumbest thing I've done is,
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and this is before DeFi even existed. So we can go back to that. But I owned a bunch of Bitcoin back in the day, really a large amount. When I was working on Wall Street, I worked at Citigroup as a trader, traded like credit default swaps and things like that. And I was super interested in Bitcoin because it's like the integration of it's like intersection of markets and economics, and that's kind of where all my attention has spent my life. And so I dove down the rabbit hole, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy a bunch of this, and I did, and it went from like I don't know 200 to like 1200, and then this is like Mount Gox days, I believe. And then Apple Pay was announced, and I sold all my Bitcoin because I thought that Apple Pay was going to eat all the Bitcoin worlds. And it just goes to show how much I misunderstood the thesis at the time. And what's also pretty interesting about that is it did go straight down to like $100 or something like that. So for a moment, I thought I was a genius, and then
Yeah.
was very, very quickly reminded every day, how much I missed the thesis. And I think one thing to take away from that, just not to get too serious or anything, but everybody assumes that like what's happening at this second and at this time in crypto is like what's going to happen for like the next year. But if you actually think back, like every year something totally different that nobody anticipated continues to happen. And so like that's why I think having the right foundation of things, and then evaluating the space as a whole is the right approach, rather than just um, looking at what exists right now and worried about week to week what's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just I think we're all I think like I guess when it comes to, I guess, holding onto assets with like volatile, like assets that are as volatile as crypto, like we all get caught up in like short-term price fluctuations, like whatever's happening like right now, right today. But if you take a longer term mindset about like everything, then is things become more clear and it's easier to build conviction.
And that's
Yeah.
not only a crypto thing; that happens in traditional markets. I can attest to that. A lot of people, kind of do the same. I mean, everybody saw the AMC and GameStop fiasco.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, this has been a great conversation, Luigi. Thank you for being on my channel. So for anyone that wants to like hear from you, like where can they find you? Like, do you have a Twitter or where's the best
Yeah,
place to
you
like
can.
find you?
Yeah, for sure. You can find me on Twitter. It's at Luigi DeMeo. Pretty simple handle. So yeah, excited to chat with everybody and continue to work on growing this ecosystem.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks for being on the channel, and I hope my audience learned a lot from you today. And I hope to talk to you again soon sometime.
Cool.